What's happening, ladies and gents, and welcome to this episode of Gearist TV. On today's show, we're going to be breaking down the Aeon bike helmet from Giro. So do you guys remember a few years ago when nobody wore helmets because it wasn't cool? Yeah, I don't remember that either, because it's been a while and now everyone wears helmets. You know, the main complaint back then was that they're heavy, they're hot, all this kind of things, but you know, fortunately for us, and fortunately for safety's sake, many advancements in the product's manufacturing and the structure and their construction and all that kind of stuff, all these things have combined to make helmets lighter, faster, sleeker, cooler, all these things. And the helmet that's been sitting as the flagship of the Giro line for the past few years is the Giro Aeon. Now, what's great about this is that its construction, its durability, its safety, all these things are pretty timeless in this helmet, so it doesn't have to be rotated in and out year after year. And now let's break down why this helmet is such a good helmet for everyday riders or for the pro peloton. First, let's talk about the materials and construction of the Aeon. Now, for this helmet, Giro has used in-mold construction. Now, what that means is essentially they've constructed the polycarbonate shell as well as the EPS foam, this foam that you see right here, all in one step. So rather than having two pieces like a polycarbonate shell built separate from the EPS and then laminated together, these two pieces are bonded together in construction. For you and me, what this means is that they can make more advancements and have different ways of making it more aerodynamic and also more ventilated, which also in the end equals lighter much of the time. Another thing is that it also makes it a little more expensive because this process is a little more involved. Now, in terms of safety, whether it's this kind of construction or the two-piece construction with laminated inner and outer shells, the safety is the same. However, again, this is lighter, it's more customizable in terms of weight reduction and in terms of ventilation. So this is the way to go for most road helmets. Woven in between the EPS foam and the polycarbonate shell, and you can see pieces of it here, is Giro's thermoformed roll cage system, which is made of DuPont's nylon. Okay, now what this means is it puts a skeleton inside of this thing. So if you were to crash and you bash your head up against something or whatever, it's not going to immediately crumble or blow apart. So you're going to be able to have structural integrity to this regardless of crash. Now, of course, if you have a major crash in a helmet, you should replace it immediately every single time. But for the purposes of keeping your head safe if you're going down a hill or whatever and you crash like that, this is definitely going to keep the helmet intact and keep you safe. Now, both the in-mold construction that we talked about as well as the roll cage system that we talked about combine to make a really big opportunity for this to be a very open helmet and provide a lot of ventilation. Now, it's not enough for Giro just to put in a bunch of vents. There are 24 vents on this helmet, and there are certainly helmets with more vents. However, in this helmet, they haven't just put those vents, they've tried to make them a part of Giro's wind tunnel technology, which is to say that for every intake on the front of the helmet, there's going to basically be an exhaust off the back of the helmet. And what this does is that rather than simply allowing for air to come off the head, it's going to funnel air across the head, which is going to cool, because if you're wearing this and you're sweating, again, you want that airflow across the sweat, which drops the body temperature. Internally, the helmet's padding uses X-Static technology. Now, if you've watched our reviews before, you may have seen our review of some of the Giro snow helmets where they also use X-Static. Now, the great part about X-Static is that it's naturally antimicrobial. It's got silver woven into it, and so that it's not something that's going to wear off after a number of washes. It's not a treatment. This is something that is woven into the fabric. Basically, if you're sweating or you got snot flying or rain or dirt, crap, and grime coming up all over you, this is going to keep the bacteria off your head, right? At least as far as the padding can go. And it's also going to keep it from getting quite funky, which you also don't want if you're wearing helmets all summer long, which you should be. Now, the webbing or strapping on the Giro Aeon is right here. It's made of Giro's slimline fabric. Now, what's really cool about this, super lightweight. Some of us have been used to in the past, the material that webbing is made out of is a little bit heavier. It's quite durable, but in this case, it's very thin, very light, and wicks moisture away very well, which is great because if you're like me and you sweat heavily at all, especially on the rear of the head, you can see here where it's going to come down. It's going to kind of have capillary action down the chain of the webbing here, and it's going to sit at your chin and kind of collect there and drip, drip, drip. In the case of this, from my experience, this really does wick very well. The moisture that hangs in the strap tends to go away, and you also don't get, depending on how loose or tight you keep your helmet, you also don't get that thing where you feel this heavy wet thing bumping into your throat every now and then. So really nice webbing with the slimline webbing from Giro. Probably one of the most important parts of a helmet from both comfort and a safety standpoint is the retention system. Now, in the Giro Aeon, what they've used here is the Rock Lock 5 system, which you can see right there. Now, what's really great about this from a comfort standpoint is that, first of all, it's got super microscopic adjustment. Basically, it will adjust 2 millimeters at a time. I think 2 millimeters at a time. Super, just really fine tuning, because look, if you've got large increments between clicks on the ratchet, not everyone's head is going to fall into those. So this is a very fine-tuning thing. It's very small, very lightweight, very dirty in the case of this helmet right now. But a really nice job. The other thing is that it's really light, even lighter, much lighter actually, like 30% lighter than the Rock Lock 4 system. Now, in terms of forward and backward adjustment, in other words, this way on your head. Now, some of us have taller heads than others, and you really want this to be able to hug the head by getting back here behind the occipital lobe. Now, what's great in this helmet, and a lot of helmets are starting to adopt something like this, as you can see right here, I'll try to hold it to the camera, that little section right there, this can basically pull up and adjust 3 points. I just pulled it up all 3 at once, but you've got 1, 2, 3 adjustment points to be able to fit it back on your head. So the helmet should be oriented kind of like this. You don't want to have to tip it back in order to get it under that part of your head. You want to be able to keep it like this. And that allowance for adjustability forward and backward on the head really makes it very, very secure. Now let's talk function and from a comfort standpoint. Now, a lot of people that have maybe not been to Colorado or just kind of lowlanders in general think that it doesn't get hot in Colorado. I am here to tell you it gets stupid hot in Colorado. I have a ride this afternoon, and while yes, it's not Vegas in the middle of the summer, it's going to be 93 degrees and it's just the beginning of June. So it gets hot here. And yes, people will say, but it's a dry heat. I've said, but it's a dry heat. It does not matter. Hot is hot, especially when you're in the sun and there's not a lot of shade around. That is where the coolness and ventilation of the Aeon comes into play real big time. Now, I will say again, as I mentioned earlier, there are helmets that have more vents than this and do an equally great job of ventilation. But in this helmet, the way that it funnels air across the head does a great job, assuming you can move fast enough to move that air. And when you're climbing up a mountain, that's not always the case. But it still does a really wonderful job of ventilation. Now, another thing is that it is definitely light. So it's not something that you feel like this oppressive presence on top of your head. Kind of when you turn your head, the helmet has this like cartoon kind of laggish. You don't feel this thing. It moves with your head very well, coming in at only 222 grams for a size medium, which this is. Now, from a weight, fit, and comfort perspective, I'll have to tell you that when I started riding in this, it was kind of still a little bit of the late winter. We had that kind of springish area here in Colorado, but I would take this onto some dirt roads on a road bike. Now, when I go into those roads, a lot of dirt roads here in Colorado, especially times when we're going to have a little bit of runoff or some rain, it's going to become a washboard road, which needless to say is not the smoothest thing in the world. And one of the great things that I noticed about this is that I didn't notice it. It wasn't there. I mean, it was like it wasn't something that was kind of bouncing all around my head as I was bouncing all around on quite rough terrain. It really disappeared, and I really like that when a bike helmet does that, because it means it's one less thing that I have to think about, and it's simply no different than riding with no helmet at all from a comfort perspective. Of course, there may have been some jostling of my spine and head on those roads, but that's for a chiropractor to worry about, not Giro. Now, the price point of the Giro does put it at $250, which yes, is expensive, I'm not gonna lie, but for top-end road helmets, that's pretty standard. Everybody's within $225 to $260, depending, and this falls right in the meat of that. In fact, you may be able to find last year's version of this on Amazon or Price Point or Nashbar or something like that for a discounted price. And honestly, the bang for your buck that you're getting in terms of weight and construction and ventilation and everything, it's not that badly priced. The price per mile is actually going to be really good. And think about this. If you've never had a really high-end bike helmet before, this is the way you need to look at it. Put this helmet on or pick it up next to your current helmet. Walk into a store with your current helmet and pick this up and hold it in your hand, and you'll be like, oh my God, it weighs like a third of what my current heavy helmet weighs. It's still going to be just as protective as your old heavy helmet, but it's just so much lighter and so much more well ventilated. This is where the big difference in this helmet is going to come in. So don't be afraid of the $250 price tag. It's well worth it. And again, if you want to try it out without making the full bore commitment of this year's model that's going to be $250 from Giro, go buy last year's model. Maybe it's a good decision to save $100 and pick one up and still get that experience of a really high-end road helmet that's been well designed to be not just protective and safe, but also very light. While Giro has certainly expanded its horizons, both getting into the snow industry with snow helmets and goggles, they at one time made sunglasses, they make cycling shoes and apparel now, all of which is good stuff, all of which we're going to be talking about soon. They have really kept their R&D focus on helmets. That's their bread and butter, and they've really done a great job. This helmet is a culmination of years of research and development, and they've really come out with a great product, and there's a very good reason why it's been Giro's flagship for the past few years. And now we'd like to know, what do you look for when you're shopping for a bike helmet? Do you shop strictly based on price, or is it something where you want to make sure you've got the best of the best and you're getting something that's really safe as well as being well ventilated and light? Let us know in the comments section below. Before we let you guys go, be sure to subscribe to our channel. We've got promotions coming up, and the best way to find out about those and get bonus entries is to be subscribed. So do it and share it with your friends, because the more people that enter, the more promotions we have. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Gearist TV. Please don't forget to find us on all the social networks: Instagram @TheGearist, Twitter @TheGearist, Facebook.com/Gearist, YouTube, which you're watching right now, .com/TheGearist. Also find us on Google Plus by just searching for Gearist. Take a look, as always, at Gearist.com. And if you've got any questions or comments about any of our reviews, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments section below. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.